You know those mornings where everything feels just a little off, but you can't quite put your finger on why? Yeah, this was way beyond that for me. I woke up on the day of my best friend Jake's wedding, right? And the first thing I realized was the wedding rings were missing. Not just my breakfast or my phone, but the actual wedding rings, the tiny, shiny symbols that everyone's supposed to be freaking out about during the ceremony. Somehow, they had vanished. Poof, like a magician's trick gone horribly wrong. So there I was, staring at the empty little box that was supposed to hold Jake and Emily's entire future, and my brain was just doing that flow motion oh no spiral. How do you recover an entire ruined wedding with only minutes before the guests start pouring in, and everyone's dressed to the nines, waiting to witness this once-in-a-lifetime moment? It's not like I'm usually the guy people panic about, but on this particular morning, I was on the brink of becoming the villain in my best friend's love story. For years, Jake and I had been tight college roommates, partners in crime, the kind of friends who could read each other's mind with one look. He had trusted me with the best man duties, and I was more than ready to step up, or at least I thought so. But now, everything was just slipping out my hands like water in a sieve. And to make matters worse, Sarah, the wedding planner who was already on edge about how chaotic the day was turning out, had this look on her face like she wanted to replace me with literally anyone else. Never trust the planner when she's giving you that glare, by the way. It's not a let's work together look, it's more like you're about to make this disaster worse, aren't you? So yeah, there I was, holding an empty ring box in a suburban neighborhood house that was slowly filling with fancy shoes and cocktail dresses, absolutely certain I'd just made history. The worst part, no one else knew yet. The guests, Jake, Emily, they all thought I was the reliable best man who had everything under control. Spoiler alert, I did not. Right then I had two choices: confess and watch the day implode in front of everyone, or try to fix the unfixable before the ceremony kicked off. Spoiler alert number 2, I'm the guy who tries to fix things and usually makes it worse. Jake and I go way back college days, late-night study sessions that usually morphed into video game marathons, all the way to this moment right here, standing on the edge of the biggest day of his life. He's the guy who's always been solid, you know? The kind of friend who's steady as a rock, dependable in the way that makes you think, pretty sure nothing can shake him. Except today, apparently, because he's stressed, and for once, it's not because of me. Emily is that calm in the storm, which is saying a lot considering the chaos swirling around us. She's beautiful but grounded, full of this quiet confidence that somehow makes me feel like maybe everything will actually work out. They met in that kind of you just know way, and for Jake, this wedding is more than just a party. It's the culmination of years of figuring it all out. I remember him calling me up last fall, voice a little shaky, saying, "Man, I'm really nervous about this." So yeah, the stakes were sky high for everyone, including me, because being the best man meant this. I was the guy who had to hold everything together: rings, speeches, nerves, you name it. But here's the thing, I am not exactly built for perfection. More like a walking accident waiting to happen, which is why Sarah, the wedding planner, didn't exactly leap into my arms with jubilation when she found out I was handling the rings. She's this whirlwind of energy, clipboard in one hand, smartphone in the other, with a gaze sharp enough to cut glass. She had been watching me since the morning started, and her expression said it loud and clear: if you mess this up, so help me. Which, to be fair, is a fair warning considering what was about to go down. Sarah and I had this weird chemistry of reluctant collaboration, like two people stuck in a tiny elevator, neither wanting to make eye contact but forced to coexist. She's the kind of person who plans every detail with surgical precision, and I'm the guy who shows up 5 minutes late holding a coffee and some sort of crumb-coated snack. So yeah, her being slightly suspicious of my ability to keep the rings safe was not exactly unfounded. And then there was the house, a cozy suburban place decked out with flowers, candles, and piles of decorations everywhere. Guests would start arriving any minute, wearing their Sunday best, smiles ready for photo ops and heartfelt moments. But behind the scenes, it was a pressure cooker of nerves and pacing feet. I could see Sarah running around, double-checking the seating charts like a general preparing for battle, while I stood there feeling about as prepared as a cat at a dog show. The reason this all mattered so much wasn't just the ceremony itself, but what Jake had built up this whole time. The long hours, the careful planning, juggling families and work. He trusted me with the rings because he believed I'd be the steady hand, the calm in the chaos. Instead, I was this flustered mess who'd managed to lose them before anyone even saw the ceremony space. Despite the electric tension, the subtle digs Sarah threw my way weren't completely unfair. When she suggested I double-check the car and the side table one more time, I got this sinking feeling that she was already mentally drafting my replacement. And honestly, maybe she should have. But something about the way she said it, part annoyance, part reluctant hope, made me realize, okay, maybe this is coming down to all of us, whether we like it or not. So yeah, the setup was clear. Jake and Emily were counting on me, Sarah was on the edge of losing her patience, and the whole wedding day depended on tiny golden bands that seemed to have grown legs and walked off. The clock was ticking, the nerves were rising, and me? I was still trying to convince myself I wasn't about to make this whole thing horribly worse. I remember standing there, heart pounding like it was auditioning for a drum solo, staring at that empty ring box and thinking, all right, where did I even last have these things? It was like those tiny bands sprouted little feet and just walked off into some parallel universe where weddings don't exist and best men don't lose rings. So, I threw myself back into retracing my steps, trying to think logically amid the swirl of panic. I checked the kitchen counter where I'd grabbed my coffee that morning, the living room table where Jake and I had shared some laughs just an hour ago, even the bathroom sink, because who knows? Maybe I'd been distracted and set the rings down while washing my hands. Not a single glint. Nothing but the stubborn, awful feeling that the rings were gone. Meanwhile, guests were starting to arrive. The soft murmur of hellos and the click of heels on hardwood floors slowly growing louder. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see Sarah darting between guests like a wedding ninja, clipboard in hand but casting more than a few sharp looks my way. I won't lie, there was this moment where I swear she mentally penciled me out of the reliable best man column and marked me squarely under mildly incompetent. Nice. I swallowed my pride and decided I had to swallow my stubbornness too, because this was bigger than my bruised ego. I tracked Sarah down by the front door where she was double-checking the guest list with her usual fierce intensity. Sarah, I said, trying to sound like I wasn't completely losing it, can you help me look for the rings? They kind of disappeared. She gave me this look as if I'd told her I'd accidentally set the cake on fire, and then, after a brief pause that felt like forever, she sighed and said, all right, but we need a plan. Guests are here. Jake's about to be waiting down the aisle, and this isn't just about finding some jewelry. It's about saving the whole day. And just like that, we were forced into this awkward alliance, me, the disorganized disaster, and Sarah, the drill sergeant of weddings. We tore through the house like it was a crime scene, lifting cushions, peering under tables, checking every conceivable spot where a tiny ring box might hide. Sarah barked out instructions like some kind of ring-finding general while I scrambled to keep up, muttering apologies under my breath every time I knocked over a vase or stumbled over a power cord. At one point, she snapped, "Why don't you try your car? Maybe you put the box there while unloading stuff." I flinched because, yes, I had been juggling a bunch of things in the car earlier, but I was hesitating to admit I hadn't checked it thoroughly. It was a long shot, but at this point, anything was better than just standing around looking like a deer caught in bridal headlights. I rushed outside, the crisp mid-Midwest air hitting my face as I flung open the car door. The seats were cluttered with bags, jackets, and the remnants of last week's grocery run. My heart sank as my eyes scanned every crevice. But then, beneath the passenger seat, tucked shyly under a crumpled napkin, there it was, the ring box glowing like some kind of holy grail in the dim light. I blasted back inside, waving the box like I'd just found buried treasure. Sarah's eyes widened, a rare spark of genuine surprise breaking through her usual, "I'm about to lose it" glare. "You actually found them," she said, sounding kind of impressed, but still not quite trusting me fully. Here's where the real challenge kicked in. Getting those rings back to Jake before the ceremony. Not just quickly, but quietly, without turning the whole event into a chaos-fueled spectacle. Time was bleeding away faster than I'd hoped, and Jake was pacing near the entrance like he could practically hear the rings ticking. I grabbed the box, took a breath, and made a split decision I'd never thought I'd have to make. Instead of trying to sneak back through the crowded house, I burst through the side door and made a beeline to the venue's back entrance where the groom was waiting. I hoped no one saw me scandalizing the wedding day, but honestly, at that moment, my main goal was survival, not subtlety. Jake looked up, eyebrows raised as I shoved the box into his hands. "Dude," he said, eyebrows still arched but his voice steady, "where were they?" I tried to sound casual and heroic all at once. "A little adventure in your car. Thought they might be trying to hitch a ride to Vegas." He laughed, this relieved, genuine kind of laugh that felt like a gift. "You're a disaster, man. But hey, glad you're my disaster." We shared a quick fist bump, the tension easing just enough to let me catch my breath. Behind me, I could hear Sarah calling to get everyone lined up. The ceremony was about to start. And just like that, the rings were back in play. But I had this nagging feeling that my troubles weren't quite over yet, and that the best and possibly most embarrassing part of this story was still waiting to unfold. Jake clutched the ring box like it was a lifeline as we walked together toward the ceremony space. I could see the tight knot in his jaw finally loosening a bit, which was a relief because honestly, I was still on high alert, heart pounding like I'd just run a marathon. Sarah's voice was behind us, firm but not quite as icy anymore as she directed the last-minute hustle with the dignified precision of a maestro. We slipped into place just in time, and as Jake caught Emily's eye, it was like a switch flipped. All the chaos, all my blunders, the near catastrophe of vanishing rings, it all somehow melted away under the glow of their smiles. The ceremony began, vows were exchanged, and those tiny golden bands finally slid onto fingers, symbols once again firmly in place. It wasn't flawless, but it was theirs, and that made all the difference. Later, during the reception, I found a quiet moment beside the bar, nursing a soda and, let's face it, trying not to trip over my own feet again. Jake found me, grinning, and said, "Look, man, nobody's perfect. Today didn't go exactly as planned, but you pulled through. I mean, you literally saved the day." I could tell he was sincere and not just being polite. That meant a lot after the stress of the morning. Sarah approached a minute later, the clipboard lowered as if she was offering a truce. "You know," she said, half smiling, "maybe you're not the worst disaster I've seen. Just try not to lose anything else tomorrow, huh?" I laughed, a mix of relief and humility, and promised her I'd keep my disaster level to a minimum for the rest of the wedding. But deep down, I knew this day would always be the one where I accidentally became the villain and then the kind of hero no one expected. Looking back, I learned a few things about responsibility, mainly that sometimes it's messy and imperfect, and that's okay as long as you don't bail on the people who count on you. Friendship? That came out bruised but realer. Maybe Jake's trust in me had been shaken a bit, but it wasn't broken. And between Sarah and me? Well, let's just say we had a newfound respect, even if it came wrapped in sarcasm and stubbornness. I guess the takeaway here is that life doesn't hand out perfect moments. Sometimes it throws curveballs disguised as lost rings and sweaty palms. But those moments also reveal what kind of friend you really are when the stakes are high and the clock is running out. So yeah, was it the flawless day Jake and Emily dreamed of? Nope. But it was theirs, stamped with all the beautiful chaos that makes a story worth telling, and honestly, I wouldn't have wanted to experience it any other way. Now I'm curious, have you ever had a moment where everything seemed to go wrong, but somehow you managed to pull through? What's your accidental disaster turned almost hero story? I'm all ears.